update, Service Manager 9.3 Automation Integrations, and Service Anywhere version 2 Quick Peek. My name is Mary Kay Peterson. I'm a co-chapter leader of the HP Service Manager Special Interest Group with Vivit. Next slide, please. Today's webinar event is brought to you by HP. While we wait for everyone to log in, I'd like to make a couple of announcements. The HP Discover Conference is coming up in Las Vegas, June 11th through 13th. Thousands of IT executives, managers, architects, engineers, and solution experts from around the world will be there exploring technology developments, strategies, and best practices. There will be hundreds of business and technical sessions. To get the best possible conference rate, use the Vivit code. This will save you $300, which is a better rate than the current early bird pricing. We hope to see you there. Next slide, please. Vivit is going to be hosting advanced pre-conference training at HP Discover. This is a great opportunity to deep dive and develop professionally. Training will be held on June 11th. There are 10 courses to choose from, but the one most relevant for this group is based upon today's webinar event topic, which is new and advanced UCMDB discovery script development using UCMDB web services. The cost per training is only $99 thanks to our sponsors. A Vivit Advanced training course can be added to your new or existing HP Discover registration account. Next slide, please. I think most people have now had a chance to join us, and so I want to talk about we have two prize drawings for today's event. Each is a $100 American Express gift card. The first will be drawn from everyone who registered for the event. The second drawing will be from everyone who attended the event. Both drawings will take place after today's webinar. The winners will be notified via email, so watch your inbox, and thanks for joining us. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted on Vivit's website. The recording will be accessible by all Vivit members, and we'll send out an email with the link to the recording after today's session. And last but not least, we will hold a Q&A session at the last 30 minutes. Please type your questions into the question pane as we go along, and we'll answer them at the end. Next slide, please. Today's speakers are Jacques Conat, Director of Product Management at HP Software, Scott Knox, Senior Product Manager at HP, and Chuck Darst, who is also a Senior Product Marketing Manager with HP Software. I'm going to hand it over to Jacques.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So we wanted to start with an update on the strategy for HP Service Manager. So that's the part I will cover first, and then I'll hand over to Scott for the part on automation. So I need to first start with some legal preamble. So this is a roadmap. So the goal is to give you an update on the strategy, but of course that roadmap is subject to change, even though I'm presenting that to the best of our current knowledge. The other thing is that this is confidential information, so you're not supposed to distribute this information further than the ones who are supposed to have access to it. So let me start with what is our vision for IT service management in HP? You've heard, you've seen the development of our product line over the last quarters, months, year. We've announced about 6 months ago a very exciting new product line with HP Service Anywhere, and you'll have a quick peek on the version 2 that is coming soon. And we wanted to have this strategy update to make sure that our strategy between Service Manager on-premise and Service Anywhere on SaaS is very clear to everyone. We think that there could have been some misunderstanding about our strategy, so we wanted to have this update. the strategy that we have on ITSM has to be put in the broader context of HP software. So HP software is now organized into what we call performance suites, and I'm going to focus today on the left-hand column, which is the IT performance suite, which is really what we're looking at. But we have now, through the various acquisitions, such as ArcSight or Autonomy, built other performance suites for security, legal and compliance, and marketing. So we're going to focus on IT. And so I think a number of you know the content of the IT performance suite, which is made of these 4 product lines or product pillars, as we call them. And the one that is of interest for us today is service and portfolio management, which contains IT service management. And so the vision for service and portfolio management, and it is really the same vision whether we implement that or instantiate that on-premise or on SaaS, is to simplify the management of IT services across the entire life cycle. So if we take a relatively simple view of the life cycle from plan to build to run, and of course these words hide a lot of complex processes behind them, but essentially that's what the IT service life cycle is. We have a number of product lines, so starting with strategy, planning, and governance for the plan part, the application lifecycle management. We've got some exciting news in terms of Agile Manager for build, and the run part, which includes primarily IT service management, but also business service management, so the whole monitoring. And we have developed in HP software, first of all, those 3 product lines, actually more we have for these 4 pillars, but also a number of IT capabilities, that's what we call them, or IT value streams. We've got several different names that bridge the different parts of that life cycle. And I'm listing the 4 that we have today that are part of IT Performance Suite reference model, which is bridging from strategy to portfolio, which is the first one, and bridging from requirement to deploy, request to fulfill, and then lastly, detect to correct. And all these IT capabilities include a lot of processes, artifacts, and reference models. So that's not the subject of today's presentation, but it is part of the strategy update, because that is the service and portfolio management vision. And we instantiate it in 2 ways. One, which is on-premise with the products that you're most familiar with. So starting with PPM, Project and Portfolio Management, the Application Lifecycle Management, and IT Service Management, and including Business Service Management, the monitoring part. And so we're working on, we have already a lot of integrations. So think about the solutions like SACM, CCRM, and CLIP. They all fit in this picture. And we continue to enhance them. So, for example, we'll look at some of that in the roadmap, but we're looking at integrating further PPM and ALM, Service Manager and Quality Center and PPM, so that we have the best picture here in terms of IT capabilities. That's the on-premise one. And what I'm going to present today is a 3-year roadmap for Service Manager. So we have a very solid investment and roadmap for all those products on-premise. In the SaaS world, we also have a way to instantiate that strategy with a different platform. So that's the Service Anywhere platform, on top of which we're building gradually the functional capabilities, starting with ITSM, so the functional equivalent of Service Manager, but then over time adding the asset management part, the project and portfolio management, including the application lifecycle management. So while conceptually it is the same vision, it is instantiated in 2 different ways, on-premise and on SaaS. So this is a description of service and portfolio management. We have, it's a different view, a bit more detail from the previous slide, where I'm going to the next level beyond the title I put previously, strategy, planning, and governance, which includes primarily project and portfolio management, but application portfolio management is a recent extension, and IT Executive Scorecard is the reporting umbrella that covers all the products. In IT Service Management, we have Service Manager, Asset Manager, and then Service Anywhere. And then lastly, we have the foundation, which is the Universal CMDB and Universal Discovery. So how do we see the world evolving, and how does that affect our product? So there's a lot of things happening in the marketplace. It's happening very quickly. There's a lot of things changing very quickly. And I want to single out two aspects that have a particular impact on the Service Manager roadmap. The first one is everything that has to do with user interaction. And so it is about consumerization of IT. So the fact that users are increasingly behaving like consumers, and meaning you and I, as we interact and do, e-commerce or look at our social media applications. So increasingly, the need is for IT to behave like a consumer application. That's one, and that drives a number of things, in particular in the area of user experience. So we'll talk a lot about user experience. There are a lot of ramifications, but I would like to keep that short. The second driver that we really want to put in highlights for this roadmap is the increasing use of external service providers to enterprise IT, to central IT. And so we see, put a number here, we see that the majority of enterprises outsource a number of IT services. And it started with maybe one external supplier. That was probably some years ago, or actually many years ago, there was no outsourcing. It moved to limited outsourcing, and now what we see is that there's a large number of services that are outsourced to different service providers. In average, between 5 and 7, that's a good average. And so it drives a number of requirements in terms of being able to manage those suppliers. And it's a very important requirement that is now coming to IT and to the service desk in particular, because even if central IT outsource those services, it is still responsible to deliver them and ensure the quality and governance of those services, and actually billing as well, to the end users. So that has a lot of implication, and we'll talk about that in the roadmap. So before I go to the direction, I just want to have a quick level set on where we are on Service Manager. So Service Manager shipping version is version 931. It was released in October last year, and it has the three main enhancement compared to version 930 that was shipping before. One is on the self-service portal. So we released a new self-service portal, SRC, which has a number of functional enhancements, and also a lot of additional customization capabilities. Previously, we were limited both functionally speaking and in terms of customization capabilities, so that's what we released. That's the first part. The second part is collaboration. So collaboration is a very big theme, and we are gradually integrating collaboration in every process in Service Manager. So what we had before was only in the context of change, and now we added that in the context of incident and interaction as well. And we'll talk about the roadmap. The goal is to generalize that integrated and in-context collaboration in all processes. And then lastly, we did a lot of work around integration with UCMDB and BSM. So UCMDB enhancing the integration, integrating the UCMDB browser in Service Manager, and bringing downtime management in the event to fix or clip, to be precise. So that's a level set. Most of you are probably aware of that, but just in case, I wanted to make sure this is clear. The second part I want to do before we go to the more long-term roadmap is talk about what is coming next. So coming next, and you know the limitations I have, so I can't give you the version number, I can't give you the exact date, but it is relatively soon, and the improvements that we're bringing in that next version are the following. The first thing is that we continue on our journey to move everything to Process Designer, and in that version we'll have the help desk content pack. So the 3 key processes of interaction, or service desk, incident management, and problem management based on Process Designer. The second part is that we're bringing a new mobile client for smartphone that we run on the most popular smartphone versions. And we've done a refactor of our technology stack to do that, and we'll add the custom fields support. So in terms of use case, we'll have the incident handling, the same as was released in 9.30, but of course with the custom fields, the change approval, same as 9.30, but also with custom fields, and we'll also have request approval. The third part is related to service request catalog. So after 9.31, we're seeing a large adoption of SRC, and of course, with adoption comes enhancement requests. So we're bringing a number of enhancement requests. There's a lot of detailed enhancement requests, but the probably most important one, most notable one, is the support of dynamic field and value, which is something that has been requested for a long time, and so this is coming in this version. We're also going to have the SRC run on tablets, both Android and iPads. And then lastly, mostly for U.S. federal government or generally speaking government customers, we're adding a number of federal mandates, so the support of IPv6, CAC, that's the authorization cards, and then the FIPS 140-2, the encryption alignments. So that's what is coming in next version. So that is, I would say, a number of you have seen that before, so that might not be some breaking news. What I wanted to share is, as I said, that we have now a very clear roadmap for both on-premise and SaaS. So these different product lines, Service Manager and Service Anywhere, are different product lines. They both have now a very strong roadmap for the next 3 years at least. So we have more than that, but I think at this time we have crafted some versions and timeline for the next 3 years. So that's what I want to share. So what are the directions we're taking for Service Manager? So the 4 directions that I want to highlight are, the first one is around IT processes. So this is something that I've articulated for a long time, which is moving everything to Process Designer, but actually more than that, we want to do essentially what we have done with Service Anywhere from day one, which is codeless. So everything being codeless, using Process Designer, and then what we will use beyond Process Designer is also the form editor and table editor that are available in Service Anywhere. Now that has there are some prerequisites to do that, and we'll talk about that, but this is the direction. The second sub-bullet of the IT processes direction is the fact that we're integrating automation now systematically in all processes. So this is the direction we want to take. We'll see how it translates in terms of roadmap. The goal is to have in every task, so the task concept is going to be generalized in all processes, and in every task we'll be able to embed a runbook automation flow from operations orchestration. So if you combine the two, you've got some really strong combination of completely codeless environment to define processes and associated forms and tables, and integrate automation as part of that. So that's the first part. The second part is related to user experience. And the first slide about market dynamics, this has a lot of impact in our roadmap. So we're working very diligently to upgrade our web client. And the goal is that it supports multiple form factors, so desktop, tablet, smartphone. So we're delivering a new smartphone client in next version, but then the version after that you'll see we'll talk about tablet and revamped joint tablets and desktops. And the goal is clearly to get to a consumer-grade experience for all these user interfaces. The third part, the third direction of our roadmap is around the cost of running the platform. So there's a number of things we're doing and we've constantly done, and you've seen hopefully some improvement. It goes also together with improvement in terms of performance, scalability, and reliability. We've improved dramatically between 7.11, 9.2, 9.3, 9.31, and then we've got further improvements in the next version after 9.31 in terms of performance, reliability, and quality. But there are also things that need to be done more structurally in the platform, in particular around the data model, and we'll talk about that. And then as part of that, the integration with the CMS and the discovery are going to be improved. And then lastly, back to the topic I introduced at the beginning, which is multi-supplier management. This is an area where we're putting some focus now, and we're working with our professional services organization that has defined a services framework that is called SIAM, that is essentially the framework to manage multi-suppliers or to integrate multi-suppliers. And what we're doing is that out of this services framework, which is a services engagement, so it doesn't have a lot of software content, we're actually defining the software content that can be brought and to accelerate those multi-supplier management engagement. So we're adding a lot of product content to this services framework. And so we'll talk about that. It has to do with APIs, it has to do with case exchange, and it has to do with monitoring and governance of suppliers, monitoring their SLAs. So if we go now to a little bit of detail on these four areas, the first one related to IT processes. So that one, you've seen these slides. The good news is that it's moving forward. It has not changed, but you can see now this half blue, half gray part, which is the service desk incident problem, is coming next, actually very soon, in a matter of a few months. And then we'll add on top of that request and release management. In terms of user experience, so I'm showing here a prototype, so you can see the disclaimer. It might not be the final version, but it illustrates the direction we're taking in terms of enhancing our user interface. We're looking at taking better advantage of the screen, having a lot more productivity in terms of type ahead, all the classical ergonomics that we can see today, native support of different form factors, very customizable, and also the mobility extension, mostly for smartphone, because tablet and desktop are going to be merged. Will run on the HP Anywhere mobile platform support. So that's something we're doing soon. In terms of the evolution of Service Manager platform, what I wanted to show here is that when we build this, when we have this 3-year roadmap, we want to show that we're really committed to improving the core platform. And one thing we knew we had to do is to finally talk about evolving the data model of Service Manager to make it relational. So the question is, and I would say we've a little bit avoided this topic for quite some time, and it's very clear now that given that we continue to have two very distinct product lines between on-premise and SaaS, we don't have a convergence plan. SM is not going to be replaced by Service Anywhere anytime soon. So we want to continue to evolve the platform itself. And so this is what is behind this evolution of the service manager data model to a relational one. And it is tricky, but so we're going to do that in a way that I call here additive, which means that we will not inflict a forced migration to Service Manager 9 customers when that relational database model becomes available. It is very important. I think this is something you should keep in the back of your mind. The main driver behind this evolution of the data model is not inflict a forced migration to existing customers. And when we do that, we got a lot of benefits. We're going to be able to leverage the table editor that is in Service Anywhere. It is really very easy to add attributes, add tables, add relationship in a graphical way, entirely codeless. Form editor comes also with the fact that we're adding attributes in the forms in a metadata-driven way, and also completely codeless graphical user editor for forms. The other part that comes with all these three tools, the process designer, editor, form editor, is the fact that we have a very clear separation between the product content and the customer extensions, which means that upgrades are increasingly easier. With Process Designer, it's already much easier. So we have a very clear separation on the process content, but we want to do that also with forms and tables. In reporting, we're doing quite some improvement in our reporting offering. So first of all, we're going to enhance a lot the in-tool reporting. So think about the charting today that is quite limited. So we're going to enhance it very significantly. And we're also going not waiting for the relational database model, which of course would have a lot of benefits in terms of having a very clean ETL interface. But even in the current data model, we're going to provide an open interface to the data model for reporting purpose. On our API, so integration is a very important part of Service Manager, and we've got today two main integration vehicles, which are Web Services SOAP APIs and Connected. So we'll keep those, but we're also going to add a new set of APIs based on REST technology, which is simpler, more modern, has a lot more benefits in terms of integration. And then lastly, we'll integrate operations orchestration in all the processes by the means of tasks. So how does it translate in terms of Service Manager product roadmap? So I talked about the next version that you can see on the left-hand side. We have a version after that that we call Full Process Designer in comparison to what we have in Service Manager today, meaning that we'll have also request fulfillment on Process Designer. We'll have a first version of the new user interface. So I'm listing here Tablet UI. So it's still evolving. And we'll have the REST API. Actually, the REST API will come before that, but we'll have them for case exchange. So we'll start to put together the layers of multi-supplier management, starting with the REST API for case exchange. We'll bring the enhanced reporting, and then we'll add also some element of gamification on knowledge management, which we think is an area that is going to benefit dramatically from gamification techniques. So adding ratings on articles and to authors. Then we've got a version that is going to be really focused on user interface. So the new UI that will bring the benefit of form editor. That is also where we're going to onboard everything in Service Manager to Process Designer. So today, for a process to be available on Process Designer, there's an onboarding process where we need to enable the tables underneath this process to Process Designer. And the goal is to, in fact, enable everything in Service Manager. So that's what I mean here by Process Designer enabled master data. we're working on improving the catalog management, so it's actually both simplified and enhanced. And then adding the next layer of multi-supplier management. And then lastly, and that one, without talking about version number and dates, will be clearly a major version. And that's when we'll introduce the relational data model for Service Manager. And as I mentioned, it will be additive. And you can see a number of things that we discussed. We'll also add the release and deployment management of Process Designer. And we'll move a number of things that are today in a different products, and I'm taking release control. We'll move them natively to Service Manager. Enhancement around UCM, DBCM as well, and some simplified service level management. So that is, let's say, in the 3-year roadmap. I don't want to give exact dates, not only before this is still in planning process, so this is not fully committed, and also because I'm not allowed, but I hope it is helpful for you to see that when we say we have a very strong roadmap, we actually have quite a lot of details behind that statement. The other thing that is really important is we do not have any convergence between Service Manager and Service Anywhere. As I said this, and I like to repeat it, these are two very distinct product lines. However, we're making everything possible so that we can leverage technology between the two product lines. And that is the case for Process Designer. You've heard me talk about how we want to do that for Form Designer and Table Editor. User interface and HP Anywhere mobile technology will be the case as well. So we want to try to maximize the synergy, the sharing of technology, but that is very distinct from converging the two product lines. So as a summary and conclusion of that first part, and then I'll hand over to the next speaker, so ITSM is part of service and portfolio management, which vision is to manage the entire IT service lifecycle. I think you've seen that. It's instantiated into two different product lines, Service Manager and PPM and Asset Manager and CMS for on-premise, and then Service Anywhere with a different architecture on SaaS. In terms of, and each of these two product lines have a very strong roadmap, leveraging the best of both worlds so that we maximize the sharing of technology to provide you with two very strong alternatives, whether you want to go on-premise or on SaaS. So that's the summary, and I hope that you've got some useful details behind this high-level statement in terms of detailed roadmap for Service Manager. Okay. Next speaker.
That would be me, Jacques. I want to commend you to the audience. Can you hear me okay, everyone?
Yep.
Thank you. And Jacques, I understand you'll be running the slides for me. And I wanted to tell everybody on the phone that I think Jacques is a tremendous part of the HP team, and you may not realize it, but I kind of think of him as the James Brown of HP. He is the hardest working man in rock and roll. So on that, I would like to talk to you a bit about automation for IT service management. I've put together hopefully something that's a little bit entertaining, a little bit of fun, but mostly targeted how to help you move forward with automation. So that's me in that picture. And so the first question I want to ask, and I'll be doing lots of questions and answers through this presentation, is why do I, as an IT team, why do I, as a customer of HP, why do I, as anybody, care about automation? What is it about? Why do I want to do it? What value does it provide to me, and so forth? And so my summary there boils down to it's about the money. It's about cost containment. And I get cost containment when I focus on agent efficiency, when I reduce the time it takes me to accomplish tasks in IT, when things are repeatable, and then there's something about Mrs. Doubtfire. And you're probably looking at this slide going, all right, sure I don't understand what Mrs. Doubtfire has to do with automation in IT, so I thought I'd explain that. And Mrs. Doubtfire is a movie, and those of you who know me and follow my blog know that I love to link movie references into IT service management topic areas. And Mrs. Doubtfire is a movie about a man who changes his character to be an old woman so that he can babysit his children. Now, what does that have to do with anything related to IT? Well, my point here is that one of the key advantages of automation is that you don't need to babysit activities that your IT teams are doing. And so as an example, I'll give you this case out of our HP R&D team. Testing was one of the big exercises that we wanted to focus on, and over the last couple of years we have really focused on doing more and more and more testing of service management and the related products as they go out the door in all of our patch versions and so forth and so on. And we did a lot of tests, and we had a lot of people focused on the testing exercises. But the R&D team has put in a secondary focus that automated testing is a huge benefit. And the key advantage then is that you can run these tests in an automated way, unattended, on a recurring basis, and realize huge benefits. And so we have run this exercise. It has dramatically improved the product quality of service management. But I wanted to point this out so that you can think about how can you use automation tools, improve your efficiency, and get more done. And I don't want to say with less people, because you still need the people, but with you get much more accomplished with the same number of people. And hopefully that all made sense, and we can move on. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. So where can I tie automation into service management? Well, Jacques was just telling you about our ability to integrate operations orchestration into tasking throughout the service management module disciplines. So in change management and problem management and incident management, interactions, throughout the entire suite of products, in all of our processes, you will have the ability to drive automation activities using outboard tools from SM. Most of those activities in our part of the world are driven out of web services, but they can also be driven out of email, both inbound and outbound, and using Connected and other tools, other middleware tools. You can drive from anywhere in SM automation behaviors. And so what I want you to think about then is, what kinds of automation do you need? What does your IT team need to deliver as part of your service management discipline? But more importantly, as you drive business services to success, how can you use automation to move that forward? And I want you to kind of expand your boundaries, think outside the box a bit, and look for ways to do this bi-directional activities of automation. And remember, it's not just from SM drive some behavior in automation, but we're going to also look at some samples where from the automation activities we're reaching into service management and providing value in that way as well. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so cloud deployment. So this painting that I drew here shows a cloud, which I thought was kind of interesting and cool. And I wanted to share with you a customer scenario that we have. One of our large energy groups on the East Coast has deployed operations orchestration for the activity of creating cloud instances and pushing those cloud instances into production. And so they do that from inside service management, and they have this end-to-end solution. And what will happen is that users will log into the service catalog. They will generate a request for a cloud server in this discussion. The server request will then be approved, and that server request will then be processed inside the change management discipline in SM. From change management in SM, we drive out to operations orchestration, run the OO flow, and execute the deployment of that cloud solution, push it out into the cloud environment, and then update the change that the cloud deployment took place. Now, I've added this activity of verifying, and so one of the things that I've gone back to them with is the idea that perhaps as they deploy the cloud, this cloud server, one of the secondary behaviors they might want to look at is using a different OO flow to tell the system and tell the change that, in fact, the deployment they wanted to accomplish was completed. Now, that all seems interesting, but what I found most interesting in this discussion with the customer is that when they did the automation of their cloud servers, they changed the deployment timeline from about a week to a week and a half, depending on various factors inside their organization, to hours. And because of that, because they're now able to get these servers deployed much more effectively and with much less risk and stress, they're able to focus on other elements inside their IT organization. And for them, that was a huge win, absolutely massive win, and the organization, IT group, got a lot of kudos from their management because of this efficiency that they were able to find. Okay, next slide. The next example, incident generation. And this is a very simple activity, but in discussions with customers around the world, that's basically what I do every day. It occurred to me, and it's come across, that many customers don't realize that you can take an inbound email, process that inbound email, and turn it automatically into an incident or an interaction inside service management. And as it was surprising to me, and apparently it is not that surprising, that customers out in our field were receiving emails. An agent would take that email, transpose it into an interaction inside a Service Manager, and then process that, taking up to 30 minutes to create the incident or the interaction that they needed. When with this level of automation, through inbound email to connect it, we'll hand that information off to Service Manager, they were able to realize a savings that took that single incident that they had several hundred of per week and turn it into a basically a no cost to IT activity. And they've realized that, they've implemented that, and they're hugely excited about the freeing up of their resources to focus on other things. Okay, next slide. Okay, how else can I deal with incidents? And this lovely little graphic I threw in here for you about cookie management is a pretty good example. Imagine the user who is fighting with a problem, and the answer for the issue is you have to go delete your cookies, which the cookie monster would hate, of course, but oftentimes that's the behavior. Go in your browser, delete your cookies. Well, many users don't have any idea what that really means, and so for agents on the call center, that is often a behavior to say, okay, go here, click there, type this, go there, oh, sorry, you got lost, back up, start over again. And what we have deployed for you is an incident remediation capability that automates that behavior and frees up your service desk. And the way we do that is that we put a knowledge document into the knowledge base. A user comes into the self-service portals or into SRC, or gets into service management, searches the knowledge base, identifies the problem that they've encountered, finds the article that describes the mitigation for their problem or remediation for their problem. In the knowledge document is a link to an OO flow. They click on that link. That OO flow is generated. They provide some base information. Perhaps they need to provide their IP address or whatever. And then from that, the OO flow, the OO engine receives a web service from Service Manager. It says, go do this piece of work for Service Manager. OO does the work on the customer's system or server or wherever it needs to happen. The work is accomplished. Tickets are automatically updated inside Service Manager that the resolution has taken place, and the solution is provided without a call to the help desk ever occurring. And again, we're freeing agents to focus on other important behaviors that they need to deal with. And oh, by the way, another element of this might be that the customer logs in and finds the knowledge article, and then OO flow in that particular case could be something as simple as go reach into the customer system, grab out of their system environmental settings, configuration items, whatever, passes that over into Service Manager and generates the ticket, so that if a desk agent is needed for resolution, much more information is available. And so not only do you empower your desk agents, but you improve the time to resolution for your customer community. Okay, next slide. And I'm going to slow down a half a step here just because hopefully this is all making sense to all of you, and hopefully this is not new news, that these automation capabilities are out there for you. But we wanted to put them out so that you could know there are things you can be doing to make your solutions more effective. Another example, we have a few more in here. I'll try to go through them fairly quickly. Change verification. I am going to do a change in my environment. I would like to identify that a change has occurred successfully. One of the big problems, we know that upwards of 75 to 80% of all incidents are generated because of bad change. And bad change can come about in a number of different ways, but one of the things that can help us is if we verify the change behaviors. And so in this particular discussion, what we want to do is identify the change that we want to accomplish, pass the relevant information to Service Manager to say change this CI in this particular way, then process the change, and then upon completion of the change, trigger a verification of the change process. And then update CMDBs, update the changes and tasks as appropriate, and press on. And so now what I've noticed is that my slide and my conversation didn't link up. So change verification, the title, I think I'll talk about in the next slide. Change verification in this discussion is also the unplanned change that would allow us to discover CIs, identify deltas in our CIs, pass that delta to Service Manager whenever I care about a particular attribute of a CI that has changed. Perhaps it's an operating system, perhaps it's an IP address, something that I might care about that is going to cause an issue in my IT organization. Pass that issue off to the Service Manager system, identify whether I care about this issue or not, identify whether I have a change about this issue that I've detected or not, and if necessary, trigger an unplanned change event inside Service Manager to indicate, by the way, this CI changed in a way we were not anticipating, and then populate that change, put it on a dashboard for your change managers, let them assess them and say, oh, that was acceptable, or no, that wasn't, and then take appropriate action on the change management side of the fence. But again, we're automating behaviors, taking and making our agents more effective. And in this case, we're doing it in change management. Next slide. Okay, event management. This is hopefully old news for everybody on this this call, but basically we have event management happening throughout our organizations. We have lots and lots of event management engines. We have monitoring systems and monitoring controls. When those monitoring systems detect a behavior that meets a certain set of criteria, then generate an event into a correlation engine like OMI, or generate an event directly into Service Manager, evaluate, filter, control the event, process the event in Service Manager Incident Management, for example, if appropriate, process the event as necessary, close the event, and proceed with the restoration of service. And the bottom line here is that you're letting the tooling that we provide, that many of our vendors provide, to identify issues in your infrastructure and tell your resolution teams to do something, once again, bypassing or eliminating the need for work at the service desk. Next slide. Okay, so this one, as I was preparing this presentation, I had a discussion with Steve Anderson, who many of you know, and he is one of the brightest tools in the service management discipline. He's been around as long as I have, or longer actually. And so I talked to him about what automation topics would you think about that maybe we didn't think about. And he said, change planning. And his point was, and I thought it made great sense, and I wanted to bring it up for you to think about, when you are planning change, do you have the information that's necessary to make your change plans work the way you want, to make your change work the way you want? And so what we're proposing here is to determine the changes that you want to accomplish, trigger in OO flow to go evaluate the CIs that are affected by the change, or that you expect to be affected by the change, get additional information to make your planning process more effective, execute the change, go through those OO-related or other mechanisms to do change verification that we talked about earlier, and then document the change or adjust if there's a change failure. But the whole point here was, can I use automation to reach out into my ecosystem to make my change management planning behaviors more effective and efficient, and to make my agents and change planners more productive? And ultimately, that's been my purpose, my agenda and direction for you here as we move along. Okay, so next slide. Where can I find more? And hopefully this has been valuable and interesting for you. There are resources available to you from HP. We do this a lot. The first is what we call the integration catalog. This integration catalog will allow you to see the integrations and solutions that are available to you already. This catalog is product by product by product. You can go through and find examples of the incident mitigation, the automated change discussion we talked about, and so forth, as part of the integration catalog. You can find more in the ITSM blog. Take a look there. I do a regular blog. I would like to make sure you know about it. Go out there, because one of my key blog topics is, tell me what I don't know about service management. and we regularly update with new cool information. The next one is the ITSM community forums. There are communities of people just like you, and probably many of you, talking about IT service management and how to be effective and what else you haven't thought about. And then finally, there's a practitioner forum where twice a week we get customers and people from R&D on the phone to talk about service management. And if you have issues and questions about how you might use automation, dial in and talk to your colleagues, talk to your peers, talk to us, and let us help you move forward. So there you go. That was my snapshot of automation for ITSM. And as always, let us know what you think. Log into my blog, and we can kind of help you go from there. Okay? On that note, I am out. Jacques, I will turn it back over to you and probably on to Chuck.
You're turning it on over to Chuck, and I assume that you can hear me. So quick acknowledgement would be appreciated.
Yep, I can hear you, Chuck.
All right, that's good. All right. Well, one thing with Service Anywhere being a SaaS-based delivery, we don't have quite the same restrictions on communicating, and we're actually in our HP's Q2 fiscal quarter. So the key thing here is that we do have the next version of Service Anywhere coming soon, and just going to give you a quick overview of that in the next 5 minutes, and then we'll go to Q&A. And the other thing that I would just mention as part of an intro, Scott mentioned Steve Anderson. In the last Vivit webinar that we did at the beginning of December, we do these about quarterly, Steve actually ran through a very nice detailed demo, kind of interactive demo describing Service Anywhere. And so that would be, actually I've recommended that, watching that to a lot of people to get an overview of Service Anywhere. So let's jump in here. So next slide, please. A couple key things that I would just mention here, and we do have a few more slides, but one, in kind of setting a context, if you think of like the cadence that we desire with Service Anywhere of releases multiple times a year, actually have an agile development model for Service Anywhere. And so that's something to keep in mind, and if you've seen a more detailed version of the Service Anywhere roadmap, you would see that. But that is kind of like sets the stage here that there's really a kind of a pair of bookends maybe for what we're delivering. And the first is what we call service level targets. And so why did I link that back? I'm going to link that back over to Agile. So when we look at service level management, clearly one of the more commonly implemented processes, but what we've historically seen is just a little bit of service level management gets implemented. So what we were trying to do in this very first release is provide that 80% of the the capabilities that are used by whatever. It could be the 20% of capabilities that are used by the 80% of customers. So it's not all service level management. Again, keeping with that whole agile development, we'll be adding that back in. But we really, when we look at kind of the core capabilities that people use in the product, and with service level management, we think we have those addressed here. And again, as Scott said, we definitely welcome communication. So as you get into this and you figure out what you need, you have to let us know. But our intent then would be in a subsequent release to have full ITIL service level management. So let me go to the next slide. So there's this is just a little bit more detail on that service level targets. Again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of this. You'll actually be able to get copies to all or most of these slides. So you'll be able to have that for reference. Just have this in here for more info. So we'll go to the next slide. And in the context of charting, right, when you bring up Service Anywhere, there's this favorites section. It's kind of like the first drop down that you'll see on the upper left-hand side, and there's a variety of built-in reports and charts and stuff like that, and that will be getting a refresh in this release. So for me personally, I've shown this to a number of people in various venues. It's the stacked bar charts is probably the part that I'll be looking forward the most. but we wanted to point that out. So then we'll go to the next slide. So again, this is real quick overview of what we're providing. So I got kind of three things put on here. So the other thing is anybody that's taken a tour of Service Anywhere, and I'll mention that here in just a second, but when you come in, you land in on a to-do queue. So you can change, you can have more options, so you can choose to start on a more specific queue. So if you were incident analyst, incident agent, you could drop into a specific incident queue. Also that you could choose to start on an existing dashboard. So that's what that means. Then when we look at kind of the next set of usability improvements, just things being able to, like the second item down there, hover over a relationship field, and if you do that, it will display a pop-up form associated with providing additional information from the related record. Just things like being able to click on record lists and or click on the headers and have that then sort the record list. So these are just all things that are coming in this second release. And then maybe the one, when I kind of made the opening slide, depending on where you are at in the world, the kind of the bookend. So we have people that are kind of in different parts of the world. When Service Anywhere first came out, it's the first version of it supports English, French, German, and Japanese, and we're filling that out to our classic 15 languages. We are providing additional documentation. Will be coming out in version 2 also, so you got to stay tuned for that. So this is, again, just a quick overview of Service Anywhere V2. Let's look at the next slide real quickly. And just on here, if you go to www.hpserviceanywhere.com or search on Service Anywhere, you'll get to this page. And the new sandbox, so this is our online trial system that you can go and get a demo of Service Anywhere. It's you click that, you fill in a short little form with your name, email address. When I've done this, I usually get the automated email response back within a minute or two, and it'll provide credentials. That new sandbox will be going live at the end of March, so sometime after March 26th. So just kind of stay tuned for that. I think Scott mentioned the communities, and there is a specific one for Service Anywhere. So this is a venue to be able to go out and get more information. Also, pose questions there if you actually have any questions again around actually getting good value out of the trial system here, the shared trial. And then also there's a lot of additional information. There's actually, Scott mentioned the blog. And we have different blog posts on Service Anywhere that provide how do you get started and things like that. The other kind of key tab on this screen here would just be that Learn More. There's a lot of additional information that sits behind that. So then we'll go to the very last slide that we have before Q&A. And Scott was pointing out a variety of venues. And again, you'll be able to get copies of this. And we I have a little bit of a leading statement here. So I continue to be surprised by the number of people that do not know about HP Live Network. And so we can deliver content before we have the next release, often and frequently via HP Live Network. And so if we actually have something of substance here, what we'll do is we'll write a blog post on it. And then that content, we would then be describing and promoting content that's available out on HP Live Network. So I guess, kind of the pitch there is that we really encourage you to kind of follow the HP ITSM blog, and then also, pay attention to Live Network. Again, if you just search on HP Live Network, you'll come up with the first page to that. And the way Live Network is constructed is that there's then individual pages for individual product areas. So there's a Service Manager page, but you have to kind of click to the second page there, so you'll see that. So that's kind of the key thing. The other thing that I'll just mention and kind of staying in touch with us, we do have a variety of venues that are out there now. There's a Twitter button there, so there's a HP ITSM Twitter tag. And so if really the whole sequence, let's say we were going to deliver some new capabilities on Service Manager and before the next release, and that is going to happen. probably we would have that blog article, but then we would go tweet to say that that blog article is available. We also, promote those, new enhancements in things like the Vivit newsletter and out on LinkedIn groups and things such as that. But it's kind of like, depending on newsletters, we might get that information a month late. So again, just follow us on Twitter and follow the HPI ITSM blog. You can read Scott's entertaining blogs, and Jacques and I will also post there to give some sanity to Scott's later stuff. So with that, we'll move into the Q&A section, and Mary Kay has got that all facilitated for us.
I am ready, and I hope you guys are ready for some questions. We've got a number of good ones. Thank you for the information. First question is, will Service Manager be able to integrate with instant messaging systems like IBM Lotus Same Time, Cisco Jabber, beyond what you have now with Link?
So I can take that one. This is Jacques. So today, as I described it, and it's the case in Service Manager 931, we integrate with Microsoft Link or Office Communicator. We do not have any plan to integrate with Lotus Notes or other IM tools. I think what we need to look at is whether we would publicize the API that would make that possible. I think this is a very legitimate requirement, but we would not go beyond the publication of an API to do that and productize an integration with another IM tool.
Okay. Will Service Manager Mobility be compatible with BlackBerry Server?
I think the answer is yes. I know that there are variations of the version of the OS, so we would have to restrict to give a precise list of versions. This will be part of the compatibility matrix that will be released with the next version. So the answer is, I think the answer is yes. It is definitely the case for Android and iOS. And I think we also support BlackBerry in our new mobile clients, which is the case for the current one, by the way.
Okay. Is dynamic field and value support only within SRC, or will SM Web Client and ESS Client be able to use as well?
It is for SRC. That's correct. So the next version
just SRC?
Yes.
Okay. All right. How will SRC support tablets when Flash has traditionally been required?
That's a great question. So we worked a lot on that topic, and we found I would say it's a workaround. It's an interesting workaround based on Adobe Air. So we've tuned a lot the performance to make it really good, and we'll give the exact details when we release it, which will be at the end of the month. So today it's in restricted beta, so I wouldn't recommend to take it and adopt it and deploy it, but it's available if you want to try it. It has some limitation, and which we'll remove in about a month's time frame. So that's the technique that we use, which is to compile the Flex UI using Adobe Air. So we deploy this Adobe Air app on tablets, and we'll add some more to be able to customize the SRC. So that means that that if you take the whole roadmap into consideration, that clearly we have some more plans to improve the user interface, both for the end user self-service, which is SRC today, or the IT user interface to make it more tablet friendly and natively tablet friendly, or let's say HTML5 tablet friendly. What we have today, as you know, is not HTML5. So we found a way to work with, to cope with that, but it is not the final solution. Yes.
Okay. Can you talk more?
Jump in with one thing. This is one of the things when I was mentioning Live Network as capabilities we can deliver incrementally. This is one of the things specifically we had in mind.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
good point, Chuck.
So can you talk about integrations between automated server provisioning via web portal and service catalog?
So, Scott, do you want to take that one, or are you still on the line, Scott? No, Scott has disappeared. Okay. So, can you repeat the question? Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I think they're asking about integrations between automated server provisioning via web portal and service catalog. So, could a service catalog have server provisioning as one of the entries?
Yes, I think today we have demonstrated that internally. So I don't think we've made an external demo available on that. We've linked server automation through operations orchestration from the change management module that is then interfaced in SRC. So from the catalog, you trigger a request that is fulfilled through the change module. That change module links to OO that then triggers server automation. That works. We've demonstrated it. It works very well. Can we do shortcuts? Clearly, as I mentioned, this is an area where we have very, very ambitious plans. The fact that we want to embed OO flow, which could then be linked to server automation in every process, in particular the request management process. So today we've done that, I think, through change. There's no reason why we could not do that through request, but I know it's been done for change. So it is possible. We've done that. I think I would recommend this person to connect with us offline, and we would be able to point him to more details.
Okay, great.
I would jump in with one other thing. I mean, last year at Discover, we even had a customer present. They were doing effectively something very similar to that and executing the automation out of the request management module. So just there's different ways you could do that. I think, Jacques, and this whole question is kind of going along the preferred lines, or you probably see more of it going in the future.
Okay, thanks. Are the fields used in case exchange standardized for supplier integration?
You know, I've had this question many times. Do we have the ambition to standardize the definition of the interface for case exchange? I think the answer is yes. I think there is a need, an unmet need in the industry for a standardized case exchange interface. Are we going to do that immediately? I don't think so. But this would be typically the case, yes, that we would provide an API that would be our case exchange API for external suppliers to plug. So let's see, let's wait for the first version when we deliver it. But yes, this is clearly what we have in the back of our mind.
Okay. Relational database question. Someone's asking you general time frames. I know you can't be specific. So relational database, a year time frame, 2 years, 3 years?
So let me try to answer as vaguely and precisely as I can. No, meaning I'm not allowed, but when I showed the picture, the slide with I've listed 4 versions, essentially. What I'm telling you is that it's a 3-year roadmap. That was my preamble to the presentation. So we're in 2013. That's a 3-year roadmap, and it was on the right-hand side of the slide. So you can imagine that it's not the first year that I'm putting the right-hand side of the slide.
Okay, fair enough. Can the OO flow fire a discovery job that will detect the cloud VM server to validate UCMDB?
Yeah, great question. I suppose the answer is yes. I would need to validate offline and get back to you with a more definitive answer. Okay. Would you want to trigger the discovery through OO or through a mechanism that is a regular, at a regular time period, or on event detection? There are questions, but technically, I I don't think there is any impediment for triggering a discovery from OO.
Okay. Another question, does the level of automation Scott is talking about still rely on MAPI profiles?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think we'd have to come back to this. I would let Scott come back
Sure.
offline.
Next question, any update on the use of a hardware load balancer, for example, F5 device for horizontally scaled implementations?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually something we're going to release very soon, because what we did in the last 12 months, I would say, is work with a very small number of large customers, and we've done that in a sort of extended design partnership on the topic of F5 load balancer. And so the difficulty we had in our roadmap was that given the number of potential configurations being very large, instead of releasing immediately the F5 load balancer that would then have triggered a lot of defects, we took a handful of large customers, worked with them, validated their configuration, which none of them was similar. And I think now we're in a much better shape to be able to release that very soon. Now, I will need to check whether it's in the next version, but it is definitely on our roadmap to deliver horizontal load balancing with F5. Yes.
Okay, good. A couple of questions on email to ticket automation. First question is, where can somebody get more details on email to ticket automation? And related, is it possible to attach an email with the ticket number in the subject field to the actual ticket automatically? I would also add on to that, can you have an attachment on an email, like a screenshot is a very typical help desk use case. Someone wants to send us an email with a screenshot attached.
Yeah, so I think I would suggest, like on the previous questions that was related to Scott, let's take that and we'll get back in written on that question with some reference in our documentation or some demos. Yes.
I thought we could make that a suggestion for Scott's next blog post.
Yes, and that's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that would be good. Are the automation solutions that were described today available in Service Manager 7.11?
You mean all of them? I don't know that all of them would be available. We've definitely added some automation between 7.11 and 9.3.0 at least, and 9.3.1. So we would have, again, I think we would have to come back on this question and probably qualify which of the integrations, the samples or the examples described by Scott are available in which version, if that's the question, which is a good one.
Yeah, okay. This may be another one talking about auto opening tickets. We currently use SC Auto to automate opening of tickets. Is SC Auto moving towards end of life?
No, we will continue. So in general, when we do not end of life a feature or technology separately from a version. So we are working on obsolescence plans for 7.11 that will be announced in April externally. So I'm doing a pre-announcement today if you want. But we will not, SC2 is used widely in Service Manager 9.30 for incident exchange, for example. And so there's absolutely no plan to obsolete SC2.
Okay. Are modeled services or affected service and a fully populated UCMDB required for most of the sampled automations presented using OO integrated with Service Manager? So is UCMDB required to drive those automations?
the question, so let me try to rephrase the question. Is UCMDB required to drive the integration between SM and OO?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That would be a...
No. No. The answer is no.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't mean that it's not possible, but it is not required.
Okay. There was a new feature in Service Manager about time duration. Can you explain more what this will be?
Yeah, that's correct. In the next version, we're introducing a new module to define time periods that are used in release control. So for change impact analysis, there's a lot of an extensive usage of time periods that is not very well, not very easy to define in release control. And so what we've done is to create a separate module, and it doesn't have any licensing, by the way. So it's part of the foundation or change, an existing module to define in a much easier way the time period. So that's what time period management, which I listed on the roadmap slide, is about. And there will be more details and description when we release the next version or ahead of the beta.
Okay. You currently connect incidents with SAP Solution Manager, but not requests for change. Is that planned?
We don't have a plan yet. I've had this question for change, actually connecting change between Service Manager and SAP Solution Manager request. I would say you can consider the SM SAP integration as a sort of early predecessor of what we want to do in terms of multi-supplier management. And in multi-supplier management, we're starting with case exchange, which is essentially around incident exchange between SM and external service provider. And one instance could, of course, be SAP Solution Manager. But just like in the SIAM service framework, it is extended beyond incident to request and change or defects. We would do that also in our interface, extending beyond case exchange to request and change. So this is clearly in the roadmap of the multi-supplier management path that we're adding on Service Manager. And so the question would be then, as we go there, would we redo the current SAP integration based on that new technology, as opposed to extend the functional scope of the current integration to add request or change? I think I would go for the former, which is that in this case we would use the new type of integration with a connector to SAP, as opposed to extend the current one.
Okay. Will there be an option to remove the interaction layer for Service Anywhere, as many smaller customers don't like the interaction layer?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, which we've had. So if you look at the way interaction has evolved in Service Anywhere, it is much closer to a request. And in fact, it is a request. When the customer enters something in the self-service portal, he enters a request. And it can be a request for a service. So that's more the classical request. He can enter a request for support, which then is an interaction that translates to incidents, but which has a very short lifespan. So the request is a necessary entry point. Now, do we need the interaction in addition to request? Probably not. So yes, we've done already some work in Service Anywhere, and the interaction, is not going to be a mandatory component, I believe, when we do that.
Okay, thanks. In mobility, will you be able to send management notifications from problem management?
So First of all, today problem management is not available on the mobile client. It's only incidents, I believe. Now we can send any outbound email from any module. But the problem management is not covered by mobile today, by the mobile client.
Okay. With the additional Process Designer content packs coming, current customers are asking for documentation concerning tables updated when trying to promote changes from one environment to another using the Process Designer GUI. Will there be any type of documentation to assist customers in the future with the migration of Process Designer updates?
Yeah, I think that's something that needs to be entered. I think if that person could enter that as a support ticket, asking for exactly what information is lacking in the documentation, that would be very helpful for us to improve the documentation.
Okay. With Service Manager being positioned as part of HP Service and Portfolio Management, does that change any plans related to SM and AM integrations?
No, it does not have any effect. It's true that when I presented, the service portfolio management, I talked about ITSM, and for the sake of simplicity, I put the three. But in this context, ITSM includes ITAM. We continue to have the SACM integration, which is very key to SM, AM, UCMDB integration. We released recently SACM 930 that has a lot of improvements. We're going to continue to improve SACM. We're working with large customers who have a number of HP software products to continue to enhance the integration, not just SACM, but also CCRM and CLIP. So the answer is it doesn't change anything. I think what it shows is that we want to take ITSM in a broader context that is linked to other products, not just AM and UCMDB, but also the application part of the portfolio, so application lifecycle management, and also PPM for planning. There are some use cases from the service portal to issue a demand that would then be sent to PPM. That's an example. Integration between SM and QC. Actually, there's one that is coming, an improvement that is coming in the next version of Service Manager, where we'll be able to add attachments when there is an incident that needs to be transformed into a defect, so that on the apps part of the world there is the attachment available. So that's what was meant with the presentation of ITSM in the context of SPM. It doesn't mean that we'll do less on AM and UCMDB, actually.
Okay. We just heard you say that SC Auto, there's no plans to retire it.
Correct.
Are there any other recommended tools to use? So, I mean, SC Auto has a long history. If I were going to need some kind of functionality like that today, what would you recommend?
So we're talking about event type of integration,
yeah.
right? Not batch, which then is connected. Yeah, SC Auto still does the job. Otherwise, there is always the option to use some kind of middleware technology. A number of customers use a middleware. A number of customers want to avoid middleware and then use Connected and SC Auto. The difficulty is that it's very difficult to give a general recommendation because it is more of an enterprise architecture type of question. And so you cannot answer in abstraction of the general context.
Okay. Will HP create a Service Manager mini app for HP Anywhere mobile platform, or HPSM will provide only the current mobility extension?
So we're starting what I described coming in the next version is a browser-based application, so not running on HP Anywhere. But then very quickly thereafter, there will be the same application or mini app running on HP Anywhere. We had to do that for the sake of time. I think we discussed that already with some customers. The current mobile client that was delivered as part of 930 did not include the custom fields, which was clearly a major inhibitor to its deployment in production. So we really wanted to deliver that very quickly. But of course, the direction for all products in HP software, including Service Manager, is to deliver that as mini apps on top of HP Anywhere. And this is in our roadmap just after the version coming next.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank HP for coming to Vivit today and bringing us roadmap information. There are some additional questions that I am told that you'll be able to answer offline, and we'll get those posted on the Vivit website. Anything else, HP? Wrap it up?
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, and thank you, Mary Kate.
All right.
Have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.